speaking this
We're
time.
live, and this time there's audio.
Oh, okay, let's all ignore the last one without.
Oh! Okay,
Papa was
anyway.
so excited too. He's like,
All
"We
right.
can hear it, guys. We can hear
What's
it."
going on? I wanna lick your face. Anyways.
Hi everyone.
Hi. Anyways, yes, things live.
Worker
Live
revolution.
things.
That's what we're talking about.
We're here
today.
Yes, we are talking about the worker revolution, and we just went live. So for anyone who watched our long 18-minute silent video,
This one's gonna be even better because we got a practice
Even
round
better.
in first.
that's right. We got 18 minutes of practice, and now we're live for real with the actual audio. But really, worker revolution. There's a revolution. It's here.
It's here. It's happening.
It's happening. I guess, is it coming or is it already here?
Well, I feel like it's been coming and
I feel like
happening
it's been coming
for
all
a
year.
while.
I feel like it started before people started talking about the recession, when people just started leaving jobs. There's that mass exodus of employees from companies.
Yeah, I think. Well, do you think some of it started like really with COVID and the whole like?
I think it started in 2020 because people suddenly realized, like, when they're working online and things like that, well, there's more ways to make money with the internet than there were in a pre-internet day.
Okay, it's working.
We definitely have audio.
We definitely have audio this time. I had to check.
But yeah, really, like, it's been a long time coming. I think, like, we started seeing things in, like, the mid 2010s.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
Gig
whole like
economy
side
came to
gig
be.
thing, really became a thing like in the 2010s.
Yeah, and then we get into like it's 2020, and all of a sudden everyone's going online, and there are just so many ways to make money these days. And then I think one of the catches is, all of a sudden, like, all these people are just like quitting their jobs because they realize that they could, they don't really want to be at those jobs, or realize that they can do other things. And so all of a sudden you have all these people leaving jobs, and then all of a sudden, like, talk of the recession comes in. And then this is what I think is really interesting. Layoffs started hitting companies already, but then employees after layoffs, I need to go dig up that article. But employees who are getting laid off and things like that aren't going back to getting out of their jobs. There's some who are there, but in terms of like top end talent of people who, like, percentage of people who might think to themselves like, hey, I guess I don't necessarily need a company to go make a living because of all these online options. The way that this is different from, like, if we go back to the year 2000, this wouldn't happen in 2000. It's not. It's not this. We're in a very different world these days.
Yeah.
We're 20 years later past, like, the early days of 2000, kind of really even before smartphones started to become a thing. Nowadays, we've got people with smartphones. You can do financial transactions all from a phone. All you need to be a consultant these days, or to work for yourself, is a phone and PayPal and yourself.
That's right. It doesn't take much.
Yeah.
It's not a really like expensive thing to start a business for the most part.
It's true. And realistically, like, I even have family members who make all their money on Facebook, just out of like Facebook groups. That's the thing. And then one of the things that we are talking about, the worker revolution, is take a look at the Drop Squads guide in the link in this video post. The Drop Squad survival guide goes over our business model that's been refined for years. So let me just start from the top. Is my father was a business, started, built company, started company, nonprofit, and started two, actually. But that part's besides the point. The important part is I didn't really have parents who did like conventional like things for income. And what I ran into is I had insurance all, like, most of my life, pretty much like all from my dad building a company. And then the insurance plans, because he owned the company, then the insurance plans, we didn't have to worry about, like, suddenly, like, there not being insurance because my dad got laid off.
Yeah.
My dad might be laying other people off, but he's not the one getting laid off. And then what does that mean for someone like me? Is like I just have like insurance, and I don't have to worry about like, so I can move around and do different things in my life because I have that general foundation at a young age of just having insurance. And it's nonprofit. Nonprofit doesn't mean that my dad was affluent. We were broke. And like, I mean, had times where like the power bill didn't get paid and things like that. And so it's not like I was living this like posh, extravagant life, but you know what I had? Health insurance. And you know what health insurance does? You can just live your life, and if something happens, at least you just go to the doctor and life is good, and then you just keep going about your life.
It's a
Can't
lot
be that
less.
bad.
It's a lot less stressful to go to the doctor when you know you're not gonna have to pay a bunch of money out of.
Yeah, it's a much better thing when you know you can actually go to the doctor. It's not gonna be a big deal.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was thinking about
Tangent.
that tangent. Well, it's not a tangent.
It's not. It's all related. It's all related. Yeah.
Because the Drop Squad model is kind of based on my experiences, not just my experiences, but the model started with. I also then went to school for business. So not only did I grow up around business being built, board members, investors, things like that, I grew up around that. Then I also grew up after that going to college, which board members helped me afford that too. So did I pay for a lot of my college? I I found other people who would pay for my college. Did my dad pay for my college? No. Well, he paid what he could, but who paid a lot? Like people like investors and things like that. I got into a bit like scholarships and things like that. But what is that? What did that teach me at a young age? That you can just go and like find agreements with people and fulfill things and just live your own life without necessarily having just like the standard 9 to 5 lifestyle. And the only time I started getting into more 9 to 5 type jobs is one of the scholarships said that they wouldn't give me the scholarship if I didn't have a 9 to 5. So that was the first time
Which
I went to a 9 to 5.
Crazy. But you were like you had a successful business, but your school your scholarship for your business degree was like you got to go get a job. You can't make money from your own business. You gotta go get a job.
And I would make $200 an hour on my own stuff, and then I'd go work for other people making like I would make minimum wage for other people, and then I'd go DJ on the weekend for $200 an hour. I made $200 an hour playing music, and I made like minimum wage cleaning malware. Let that sink in.
Well, there you go.
Anyways, really though,
what's more profitable?
But I think about that though, and like one of the things that helped me get through like my early career days also just goes back to like I had health insurance and I didn't have to like figure out like, oh, but if I lose this job, what's going to happen to my insurance, or what's going to happen to me? I didn't have to worry about all that. That's too much to worry about.
I mean, especially if you have a family or something like that kind of thing, it can be very stressful.
If you have like kids and all kinds of things. Yeah. Stress, right?
To lose your job and
or to wonder if you might be in a risky situation.
Right.
That's stressful. And so right now, thousands of people are losing their jobs.
And I think that just speaks to the fact that like I think people have this false sense of security in a traditional job role. Like you think that you sign the contract and you can work now and like you'll just work this job as long as you want until you don't want to work there anymore. But no, actually, like companies lay off people all the time, as have been particularly hitting white collar workers right now. Did you get laid off for Christmas? You're not the only one, you know?
And like the days of having like you get a job and you're there for 10 years, those days are over. Like the idea of like a steady or stable job, employers are more fickle than I remember when people would be like, you need to stay at a company for, at least like 3 years is what I used to get told. Half the time companies won't even keep you for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so if you're supposed to like, well, you need to stay there for at least 3 years, but then you can't even stay anywhere for 3 years because of like the working climate. This is the climate we live in these days.
I do feel like a lot of that has kind of gone away with like the millennial generation though, because we're job hoppers, typically. What was the longest job that you held?
Like 4 years.
Yeah, probably same for me.
Yeah.
4 years.
About 4 years.
It seems like a long time that I worked at that job. And I like
a long time.
Tapped out. I did all of the growth potential and I was just like, okay, like in order for me to like have more opportunity in my life, I have to move companies. I have to do something else.
Yeah, you got to move around or go find the next thing. Mm-hmm. And like we're in a weird market where like people who don't keep moving in the market, your financial outlook is complicated. And then one of the other challenges is inflation. And so I understand like there's that one catch of like, now if you're making more money than you need to be making, that's great. But there are people who like don't make enough money barely to like pay their bills. Like, and they're like just living paycheck to paycheck. That's common. Mm-hmm. That's very common. And like, it's a luxury for those who have the savings and all that stuff, like you can give yourself the pat on the back and all, but I still have empathy for people because like even I think about my health situation and like I so I, for me, I have like health challenges. I was a disabled worker, and so like it's really hard for me to like keep up with conventional jobs. And if anyone's worked with me, it's like glaringly obvious that like if you're trying to like meet with me, it's like challenging. I like randomly am sick or just like randomly have to like dip out in the middle of a meeting or something like that. And so like for someone like me, working like a standard 9 to 5 is super complicated, super high risk, while everyone else can like show up to things and do all this stuff. I have to find ways to allow me to remain competitive against like able-bodied people who are also neurotypical and fit on a bell curve and all get along with each other and all understand each other and all follow the same themes. When one of the most interesting things about, because I'm neurodivergent, that I run into is I'll be being myself and people will be like, you should try to be yourself. Wait, what? And they're like, just relax, just be yourself. Stop trying to be whatever they insert whatever people think that I'm trying to be at times. And I think as a neurodivergent person, one of the challenges I face in offices, because that's a common conversation that can come up, is that me being myself, people will perceive that I'm trying to be away or something different. And so like when you're neurodivergent, you have disabilities and you have certain things, it can be really challenging to like navigate where do you want to be. So one of the things that we've always done is just run our own things. And then that way, if I can't keep up with stuff, who cares? If I can't keep up with the job and I try my best, that's awesome. I tried my best. And if I like took a contract or whatever, but I started automating little elements of my life since 2011, which led to, after I graduated college, so we started building a business model, and Drop Squads is our managed services provider business model. It's for people who want to basically build cloud products or managed services. We do also have someone who's building a shop. So Jordan, our CTO for Cloud Underground, he's going to be building a shop of wares off of his automations.
His 3D printing manufacturing
yeah.
pipeline, which is awesome.
Manufacturing pipelines, just me automating that.
Oh, I had something else
but since 2011, I've been automating things. It's pretty much.
Oh yeah, along those lines, it seems like people are always saying to you and to us, like, "Oh, you work so fast, you do so much all the time." Blah blah blah. It's like, no, actually, Nathan's been automating stuff since 2011 for more than a decade.
Yes, so my automations are productive. I try my best, and my best, because I build automations, probably super productive because of that. But like in comparison to like keeping up with other people, I can't keep up with like people in an average day in a conventional manner. It's like impossible. I tried. It is what it is. But I build automations. And so like the thing that's given me freedom as a disabled person is like our priority income for the things that keep us like everything that we need is mostly automated, just built on automated pipelines. I have people who are like, just like Laura said, you're like, wow, you do so much. I can't keep up with you. It's like, well, not really. Years ago, I started building these things out, and then it just looks like we're doing a lot.
Right.
And there are a lot of people around us, and we run something called the DevSecOps Dojo. But why are we able to like also like manage a little community and keep up with the community? One of the reasons we're able to keep up with the community is just because automations.
All right, so it's another day to talk about
what the machine is real.
It's real. But yeah, so I definitely want to point everyone in the direction of the link in the description of this video, which is the Drop Squad Survival Guide, quick reference and essentially this model template essentially. So you can go and learn about the Drop Squad model, what we do, how we do it, and it's we I lost my train of thought a little bit. Yeah, anyway, the Drop Squad model that you can go get. We have a free guide right now that you can there's a link to it in the video description. You can go learn about how we operate our business, There's a comparison in there to it being like Airbnb. The Drop Squad model is a lot like Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk about that a little bit more in a second. But I did want to say also that the Drop Squad Survival Guide is a companion piece to a larger ebook and RPG experience that we have created called Automate Boring Things. Because again, we know that the things that you want to automate are the stupid repetitive tasks that you have to do every day, or the painfully boring things that you never want to ever have to do again. And those are the perfect tasks to automate, specifically if they have to do with security tasks or even little things like having your LinkedIn posts go to your Facebook, or something like that that's helping your business get more traction in the market. These sorts of things are vitally important, and having a little automation takes a ton of work off of you. So anywhere that you can automate things, automate boring things, that's what we advocate for, and that's what Automate Boring Things is all about. And also what the Drop Squad model or Drop Squad Survival Guide is related to as well.
That's exactly right. So just as Laura said, Drop Squad is a business model, and then Automate Boring Things is a role-playing experience on how to implement the business model using a role play. So by the time you go through Automate Boring Things, for those who are interested in actually building out an actual asset, you're building an asset if you're doing this sort of thing, by the way. So if you decide that you're actually going to build an automation asset with Automate Boring Things, by going through the actual role-playing experience, for those who just want to know what the model is, the model's free. You can go look at the model anytime. It's comparable to Airbnb. I'll talk about that in a sec. But the role-playing experience itself, the most important piece about it is you end up with completed automations and sort of like the foundation to having an actual business operation that's ready to go. And it uses managed service provider services as sort of like the default use case and example. And it also so happens to be Drop Squads is the business model that all of Underground Ops uses. And Underground Ops uses what's called the Underground Nexus, which is a copy-paste data center and software factory. What is special about the Nexus isn't the Nexus itself. That part's not actually all that valuable. It's the fact that it is a series of boring things automated, about a year's worth of data center configurations that I find like trying to pull teeth to get people to complete those configurations. And oftentimes people will fail certain audits and reviews and things like that, or breaches over not having the basics of the basics of the basics of the basics. So all Underground Nexus is a resource that configures the basics for you, about a year's worth of manual configurations for someone who's either beginner or intermediate, trying to build some stuff, maybe 2 years for a beginner. But anyways, it lets you just kind of focus. Underground Nexus lets you just kind of focus on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. And then Drop Squads, Underground Ops uses that. Now, Airbnb. Airbnb is a home share. We are not Airbnb. And what we're doing is not Airbnb either. But it is a good comparison for trying to understand what's a similar model to what Drop Squads is. So let's make a quick comparison here using Airbnb as an example of what's Drop Squads, how's the business model work, why is it not Airbnb, but why is it kind of Airbnb? Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. Airbnb, you have a house, or whether you're renting a space or you own a space, regardless of whether you own or rent, you have to have a spare room. And then if you're renting or owning, if you have an HOA with weird rules, you have to make sure that you can rent out things inside of your HOA. If you're renting a place, then similarly, you need to make sure that whoever you're renting from, it's within agreement that you can use Airbnb, that sort of thing. So you're not violating any contracts. So the thing about that, though, is you can basically make some side cash or an entire living off of just assets that you have being a spare room. And so Drop Squads takes that same approach, but then it uses DevSecOps and Zero Trust to do the same thing with, instead of spare rooms, it's spare compute, aka cloud hosting. Now, what is compute? Let's start with compute. What it is. So, like, first, let's say, what's a room? If compute's being compared to a room could be in a house. It could be in an apartment. It could be in a large building that has many rooms. Who knows? It could be like in a mansion. And compute could be the processing for something like a Raspberry Pi or a server, or a bunch of servers that are either considered on-prem, which if you have a bunch of servers in an on-prem location, we might call that a data center. And then alternatively, if you are, if you have servers that you own, then you own those servers. Like that's kind of like owning a house, right? And then in order to connect those servers to the internet, you actually do have to have property and lines that can keep up with that. So there actually has to be some real estate involved with compute too. Mm-hmm. So you still have to know, like, are you renting a place or owning a place that's going to produce enough space for your servers or enough network speed for the services you wish to deliver? So that goes back to you have to understand what kind of real estate that you want to work with. Do you want to run servers out of your house? Do you want to run servers out of a warehouse down the street? Or do you want to use just rent? Would you rather rent instead of own? There's nothing wrong with renting versus owning with homes. You'll get people who will say, oh, never own a house, rent only, or, oh, renting is throwing money away. You could have those exact same arguments of saying, well, let's move away from on-prem servers to the cloud. Cloud is kind of like renting compute, right? And so maybe you have cloud skills. Maybe you know how to use AWS, Azure. Maybe you know how to use DigitalOcean. And maybe you don't really have room in your own space that you live in for servers. Or maybe your own network connections just are not really up to speed. So maybe owning servers doesn't make sense for everyone. But if you have the real estate and a home and all those things where you can have that real estate, great, then you can have like a force multiplier, and that's going to impact your profit margins. Versus cloud, now you have to understand, what does the cloud billing look like? It's most likely not fixed. It's most likely got certain rate things. And so it just changes your economics when you are renting. And so Drop Squads is built for people, whether you rent or own, that's kind of up to you. But regardless, Drop Squads is for people who want to rent out your compute to deliver services that you yourself define. So if you're a managed service provider, if you've ever worked at a managed service provider, then you know what a managed service provider is and does. If you've never worked at a managed service provider, maybe look up what a managed service provider is. But that's sort of the foundation of that, which is companies will have like IT or security or both. A managed service provider would be someone who, so kind of like Airbnb, you have guest services. Well, instead of hosting guests, you'd be hosting a company's IT. And maybe, there are a lot of guests to host a company. Maybe a company has 20 employees. Maybe it has 10 employees. But anyways, the whole thing about Drop Squads is it's a business model that follows that general format. And then understanding the model means that you can go and build your own services that are yours. And we don't even have to make money for you to just go and start making money without us. You can just use the model and start making money if that's something that you want to do. Or if you want to know how to have a default track, check out Automate Boring Things, the role-playing experience designed to ease you into the experience by just walking you through what it's actually like to start setting up and delivering services yourself, however you want. So, and because it's a role-playing experience, you get to decide how you want to organize your compute. That's up to you. It's your experience.
Amazing. And it's all built using Cloud Underground's Underground Nexus open source copy and paste data center.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Even have to configure the data center. You just have to paste the Underground Nexus and it configures a data center for you.
And then you can build your automations.
Yeah. You can just choose where you want your data center to be and then just paste the Underground Nexus and it'll just build itself for you. It can be in your house, it can be in an office, it could be in a warehouse, it could be in AWS, Azure, it could be across all of those locations, and you can manage all of them. And Underground Nexus automatically will configure itself for you. So that you can just focus on the services that you deliver and not spend months and months and months. And even if you have experience and know how to configure a data center, the Underground Nexus still fast forwards your configurations to get everything up and running consistently the same way every single time for every customer, so you can roll out consistent, reliable services with security in mind by default, where there's also monitoring all that stuff just right out the gate. It's DevSecOps, everyone. And then for anyone who has advanced governance needs, GitLab is baked directly into the Underground Nexus, which means that the Underground Nexus has and is an end-to-end complete DevSecOps pipeline for full-on CI/CD. And it's also, you can do everything with automate the boring things in there. So it's a great place for building serverless functions. Anything that you build with the Underground Nexus scales to wherever you want. You migrate it much more easily. And if you're, say, like a web developer who just wants to focus on web design and not the servers, you still have to install Docker. But once you have Docker installed, it's just a copy paste, and you can just start working with WordPress and just not be the IT person.
Yeah, WordPress or whatever built-in template exists in the Nexus.
That's right.
WordPress is just one of many. So yeah, automate boring things. Drop Squad Survival Guide link in the description. Go check that out. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for joining.